Are things looking up for West Ham? Yes, I'm live. I get it. It's 5 to midnight. It's Monday. I am 5 minutes away from Tuesday. I am live. Yes. Get your comments in. Go for it. Why not? And I just thought I'd come on and give you a little chin wag. And why not? Why not? Especially when you hear the news about Kudus. Now, listen, I'm not going to revel in someone else's disappointment. I'm not, because it's tough for him as Ghana face exodus from the AFCON, only picking up 1 point, or sorry, 2 points, I should say. 2 draws and a defeat. And I watched the game. Oh my God. If I was the Ghanaian keeper, I'd hang my head in shame. If you haven't watched the game, they've scored 2 goals. 2 goals in the last, like, in stoppage time, and even at the end of stoppage time. Honestly, the ball is going out, right? The ball is going out, and the keeper's reaction, watches it, it goes on the line, and for some reason, the keeper thinks the ball's out, and he doesn't, and he touches it, and it goes out for a corner. And from the corresponding corner, they score. And all but knock out Ghana. And honestly, the faces of the Ghanaian team were just so disappointing. But amongst all that craziness, it also means that we are all but having Kudus back at West Ham sooner rather than later. Now, Kudus and his teammates face an anxious wait to see if any of the odds can be beaten and they can sneak into the next round. What actually needs to happen for them means that there are 4 groups yet to play their final round of games, and results involving Cameroon, Zambia, Tanzania, and other groups must all go their way. They're asking for a lot. So there is a small, sneaky chance he could make his way through to the next round, but it's all against the odds, and the odds you would get from the bookies would make you a very rich person, 100%. I know I'm live. I know it's late. I know it's nearly Tuesday. I just thought I'd come on and say, I thought they'd come on and say hello. They're close, and I get that, Charlie. I know they're not fully out, but they're nearly out. They do, but they need loads of other teams to go their way. But anyway, this does mean that things could be looking a little bit more rosy for West Ham, because we could be having Kudus back. We've got a fit Bowen, and we've got another, how many days is it? 9 days until our next game, which gives Paquetá a couple of more weeks to get himself settled and around. If you're watching from all over the world, come in and say hello as well. Again, part of the reason for me coming on was also maybe seeing if anyone else up from the States or Australia. We've got a lot of viewers from over there as well, but come in and have a chin wag if you can. I'm not going to stay on long, but I'll just give you the kind of running situation of what it is. But listen, I'm not delighted. I am. It's a tough one. You feel sorry for the geezer, you really do. And his head will be dropped 100%. But the chances of him coming back are high. And if he does come back, then that means, like I said, we've got Bowen, Kudus, all that sort of stuff. And if we bring in the likes of Phillips, then you've got Alvarez, Suchek, and JWP in the middle of the park. And the biggest concern for me is our defense. It's simple as that. That's where our biggest problem really has come. And obviously, we are currently running on low squads. We do have a low squad, and that's a concern, obviously. But I'm pretty sure that we'll be active. I think David Moyes said that he would rather business done earlier, but we have a history of never doing business early at West Ham, and that is frustrating. That absolutely, definitely frustrates me hugely that we don't have players in the strength and depth. And when we do business in the transfer markets, we never seem to go out and get business done early. And I think there pays so much dividends. Like if you bring a player in, say, right back at the start of January, and if you're not going to feature, but they get to know the squad, they get to know the surroundings, all that sort of stuff, it's key. It's massive. It's massive for them to come in and get to know the situation that we're in. So for Touchwood, I believe that they are working on plenty of deals, and the first deal looks like it'll be Calvin Phillips. So join me tomorrow morning as I talk to you about that, and we'll probably see a bit of movement in that one this week. Loads of links to players, loads of players West Ham are linked to, but I don't know really what one is true or what one is not. I mean, I'm kind of the mindset, even though we do these shows, that until Calvin Phillips is holding that West Ham shirt and until it's on WHUFC.com and it's on the website, then I'm not sure until that deal is seen live on the thing. But what we do have in our midst of Tim Steiden, we've got a setup now. We've got people coming in. We've got recruitment. We've got Rob Newman away in, I think he's the AFCON, and Tim Steiden is in Asia watching the Asia Cup. So we've got people out there scouting, people doing a job, trying to find and source the relevant player. And I do believe we will bring in a couple of players. I really do. I'd be really surprised if we didn't, because even with all our players coming back, we will still be thin on the squad. So I do believe they will 100% come back and bring a couple of players with them. Fingers crossed. Whether they come from Asia or whether they come from somewhere closer in Europe, that begs the question. That is something we'll have to wait and see. But bringing in Calvin Phillips is a bit of shrewd business, in my opinion, because obviously he meets the homegrown quota as well, and he's got a lot of reputable Premier League experience. And of course, what we do know is David Moyes loved him because David Moyes wanted him at West Ham. That's the key thing that we need to take here from is this is a David Moyes player. And I do think there's an element of it's been sanctioned from top to bottom that they're bringing this one in. But that is exactly what he wants. Tim wants that Korean fullback. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Spoke about him the other day, and I think Russ spoke about him today. I suppose the only thing to say about that is when you're bringing someone in from such a foreign league, then there's going to be the adaptation to the Premier League, and it's a whole new ballgame. But equally, we've got to put the trust in what this full setup are doing and what the full squad are doing, and what the full the system in terms of what they're looking for. Because I think there's an element of this recruitment team going out and looking for the right player who can maybe make an impact, not just now, but for the long term, rather than looking for a player who is the long-term vision. So let's think about a player we did bring in a few years ago, Luazu, the Brazilian defender. He was brought in for the future rather than for the now, and it doesn't seem to have worked out dramatically well for us. But I think that with the new setup that we've got behind the scenes, it feels like there's more due diligence done on any of the transfer recruits. And I'll take that. And yeah, okay, proof is in the pudding. We need to see these deals happen and come through. But equally, though, we have to not panic. And we still do have several days of the transfer window to go. And we've got people on the case, 100% out there doing the job, looking for them as well. But having a fully fit squad is desperately what we need. And that is something we hopefully will have sooner rather than later once Paquetá comes back. And do you know what? This break for West Ham has probably worked in our favour, even though it doesn't work in our favours for West Ham fans because we want to see West Ham play. Being knocked out of the FA Cup, it's not ideal. I can't forgive that. I'm frustrated at that. I'm frustrated at the League Cup knockout as well. But maybe the situation is possibly better now that I think about it. Not that I want us knocked out, please understand that. Not that I want us knocked out, but maybe it's better now because we've got time to recover, time to bring these players back. In theory, if we do bring people in the transfer market, then add that to the squad we've got, strengthen and release players, etc. Because there's rumours are that Benrahma offers are on the table. Like he's got options, and we will generate some form of income. Now, Marseille obviously made an offer for him, which was a loan deal with no obligation to buy, and that's a no-brainer why West Ham would knock that back. People may look at why we've not got rid of Benrahma already, but the deal needs to be right for us. We do have an asset, and if we get rid on loan with no obligation, he's 6 months further into his contracts. He's 6 further months older without as much game time. So we need to strike while the iron's hot with a player like Benrahma. And if Marseille come back in and take him on loan with an obligation to buy, then it's a whole different story. And let's be honest, Benrahma is not going to feature for West Ham dramatically over the next coming months. He's obviously banned for another 2 games, and he won't feature for us. So it's a no-brainer. And I think we were already looking to get rid. When it comes to Pablo Fornals, I'm twisted on what I want to do with him. I part of me wants to wish him the best and say thank you for your service at the club and go and build your career elsewhere. But he does feature and it is getting a bit of regular game time and is getting minutes and picking up minutes. And I still think he adds value to our squad and he seems to really care. And I think he's a bit of a gelled unit. You know, West Ham were clever in extending his contract and protecting our asset. But we also need to think about the long term of what that means for a player like Pablo Fornals. Does he have a future at West Ham? Can he progress at this club being a kind of second string player? If we keep having European football, then there is going to be a lot of game time for these players to have. It's just whether or not that's what they want. And that's when you've got to look at this squad properly and really look through it with a fine comb and go, who are the ones you want to keep? Who are the ones you're happy to sell? Where will they go? What will they do? Listen, there's loads of you watching. Someone comment. I don't know if it's working. Maybe it's not working, the comments, but put your comments in and just give me your thoughts. But I am skeptical and excited about the rest of the window. I've been excited about a transfer window many a time. I've been let down so many a time. So I'm living on the world of caution. I'm kind of being cautious on the lead up to this. I'm putting a lot of faith into the setup that's been brought into the club. I really am. And I believe that that setup is right for the club. I believe it's the right structure that needs to take place. It's West Ham coming into the 21st century, where every other club seems to have got there right at the turn of the 21st century. And I feel like we are doing the right things now, and nobody really knows what's going to happen in the summer. There's a contract on the table, possibly not. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens. Yes, it is a late one, Liam. It absolutely is. I just thought I'd come on and share the news about Kudus, obviously being available potentially, not 100%, but 95% sure. You know, it's going to take a miracle. Maybe worth a bet, actually. Maybe worth a really low bet for Ghana to get through, because you probably get unbelievable odds for it as well. It still feels like Moyes versus Steiden tug of war on transfers. But the thing I will say to you on this, Beaks, is, again, we have to tread carefully about what we hear and what we know and what information we are fed. It's no secret that we are fed some news. It's whether or not you choose to deliver that news of what you're told. Even though we get delivered news and always have had some form of news delivered to us, I've always lived on that skeptical side of it. I don't always believe it. I'm always kind of being concerned about delivering that news to people as well. And that's why I think you've always got to be careful. You've got to put like question marks when you're talking about particular players. Do they fit the system? Do they do this? Do they do that? And when it comes to West Ham and transfers, and I think every club's the same, it's true. And you can hear a reticate you can hear people thinking that Moyes and Steiden have issues, but then you hear other people saying there is no issues whatsoever. I saw for myself the two of them what seemed to be getting on. You see pre-game in the warm-up, you see Moyes and Steiden standing at the touchline and they look like they're getting on and having a full-blown conversation. There's got to be some form of unity, because if there wasn't some form of unity, it would have gone and spiraled out of control. There's no way you can control this ship from the level that the two of them are at without having major issues come out into the forefront. And that major issues would be impacted on the field. But right now, apart from the style of play that people aren't happy about, it's not massively being impacted. So it makes me think that there is some form of unity. I done a video the other day talking about Rob Newman back in the mix, traveling abroad, doing his recruitment duties. Tim bringing in his brother to do the job with him at scouting. Mark Noble playing a vital role in like introducing players to the scouts, going out to see them, being involved and getting them settled into life at West Ham. And what better player and better person would you want to do that than Mark Noble? And David Moyes giving the go-ahead for certain players. And maybe he does want a certain signature over the line. But we can't question some of the signatures he's made because some of them have worked out. JWP's worked out. Tommy Souček, as a whole, has worked out. You need to be third place with a minimum of 3 points to be one of the 4 best third places. Ghana finished on 2 points. There is absolutely, yep, you're right, but you don't have to have a minimum of 3 points. There is a minuscule hope by being, it's the 4 best third places, and there are currently 3 teams on 2 points. 3 teams on 2 points, but the other 2 teams haven't played yet. I believe it's 3 teams, something like that. Do I think Phillips will come to take Souček's place in the starting 11? No. As simple as that. I think it's a bit of a unique situation for West Ham. I think that we have a player in our squad who has got a history of playing as centre back. He's a Mexican international and he's amazing in the middle of the park. But I can picture, and again, join me in the morning, I can picture Souček, James Ward-Prowse, Phillips, and Alvarez at centre back. Our problem is centre back, Liam, in my opinion. Our problem is defence. We're conceding goals and we are looking bog standard average in our defence. Really average. The passing, not just defensively, but as a squad, the passing the other day in the first half against Sheffield United was awful. Like, really bad. Like, I couldn't get my head around the fact that sometimes Soufal would run down the right-hand side, play a ball into Cornet, and it would be played behind him. And it would happen even on the left-hand side with Emerson. But it was clear as mustard to see that these players don't have that approach together. They've not played together. They don't know each other, essentially. And that's the problem. You could say that West Ham only have a starting 11. West Ham have a good 11. And apart from that, the rest of the players aren't up to scratch. I had this debate and talk with Dan Fandangles, who's part of the West Ham network, and he was telling me the other day that, you know, it was only a couple of years ago that we were shouting out loud about Pablo Fornals and Vladimir Soufal and all these sort of players, and it was, but times have moved on. West Ham are the second least turnover of players in the last few years since David Moyes been in charge. The one closest to us is Crystal Palace, who are number 1, so the least amount of players that have turned over, sold and brought in. West Ham are second in line to Crystal Palace. And then when you start to look further up, obviously you've got teams like Nottingham Forest who are like 110 players turned over. But when you get to like Arsenal and Man City, it's up in the 80s and the 90s. So they regularly refresh their squad, something that West Ham haven't done for such a long time. Hence the reason that we're seeing right now, we've got Pablo Fornals that's, you know, I love him. He's one of my favourite players, but he's not playing up to scratch. People say Souček is not playing up to scratch. Ogbona's aging, but we're still giving him a contract. Soufal's aging. He's not happy with his contract. So there are issues within that system and within that squad that need to be addressed. And to address that, we need to do what we can do to progress this year and get to the summer to see what the real vision is. Because right now, we don't really know what the real vision is of West Ham. We don't. It's all hearsay. We don't 100% know if David Moyes is going to have a long-term contract at West Ham. We don't know if he is going to be the new manager at West Ham. There's maybe an element of him going, listen, board, back me. Let me prove to you. Give me some money now. Get some loan deals in now. Let me prove to you that I can do what I'm going to do at this club. I'm going to progress them again. I'm going to boost up. I'm going to try and win the Europa. I'm going to try and get a place in Europe again via the league. Let me prove to you that I can do it. There is an element that David Moyes could try and prove people and his doubters wrong, and that therefore the reason why we don't know the vision is because we don't know if he is going to be handed a contract or not. And it's as simple as that. And if he isn't going to be handed a contract, then West Ham will want to save as much money as we possibly can to give the new boss, the new man in charge, the money, the relevant money to go out and do and build what he is building. And that's what makes it a tough decision, because nobody really knows. We can sit here and we can speculate and say that Moyes is going to go and it's the right thing to do. But equally, though, what is the right thing to do? Because if he is going to be in charge until the end of the season, which we know he is, then he is going to have an opportunity to spend some form of money. If he brings Calvin Phillips in and we bring someone else in the winter window, then so be it. It might end up working and paying dividends to West Ham. Who knows? But lots of potential positives to take from it. We're building a structure behind the scenes where we are close to bringing another player in. And we have got Bowen back when we probably didn't expect him to come back. We have got Kudus coming back when we haven't got him coming back yet, but we're close to having him back when we didn't expect him to coming back. And Paquetá looks pretty adamant that he is coming back quicker than 2 months than what he first anticipated. So yeah, fingers crossed. Do I follow any Scottish teams as well as West Ham? Would there be anyone up here that would come and play for West Ham? Well, to answer your question as simple as it is, no, I don't. I don't follow any Scottish teams. I never have done. And the reason for that, Beats, is just coming from my dad. My dad's a massive West Ham fan. He's from the East End. And he moved up to Scotland over 40 years ago, had 6 kids. I was the youngest, born in Scotland. But you look up to it depends who you are and what relationship you've got with your parents, but you look up to your parents and bang, the rest is history. And I've only ever known West Ham. That's all I've ever known. I've been to other games in Scotland, and do you know how it's just not... Do you know, it just doesn't fit. There's no fit. There's no emotion. There's no raw emotion. There genuinely is no raw emotion either. It's funny. I've been to so many games, Celtic, Rangers, Kilmarnock, United, whatever you want to call it, and I've never had a raw emotion about a goal being scored. I've actually sometimes thought, like, what? I don't even really want to be here. It's just been West Ham. That's all I've ever known. And when it comes to players, like, there is a lot of talent in Scotland. There is, as much as I particularly do and have done in the past, slagged off the Scottish League. You can't question whether or not they find talent. They do. Celtic have got a long-lasting history of doing it. Victor Wanyama, Celtic player, went to Southampton, went to Tottenham, made a very good career for himself. Virgil van Dijk, questionably one of the best defenders in the world. Celtic, Southampton, Tottenham. So there's been a lot of historical players. I could go on. I don't know huge amounts, but there are quite a few players that have made that jump in. And I do think there probably is a couple of decent players in Scotland right now. I'm really surprised, though. What's interesting on that point is Ange Postecoglou is at Tottenham, and he's not brought in many players that... Actually, I don't think he brought in any of the Celtic players that he brought. When he moved to Celtic, he brought quite a handful of players over from the J-League and from Australia, so a load of Japanese players. But he's not done that at Tottenham. So maybe he thinks that's their level. I don't know. It's just an interesting point to make. I fell asleep and missed both the Mozambique goals. Honestly, I could not get my head around what I witnessed. It was more the keeper. I couldn't believe the keeper doing what he did. And if you haven't watched it, the ball was going out and it actually went to the line. It was about 5, 6, 7 yards wide of the goal. It was like 1 minute to go in the game, and all the keeper had to do was watch it go out, and he didn't watch it go out. He touched it, and it went out for a corner, and they scored. Mental. Absolutely mental. And on top of that, going back to the VAR incident yesterday, I mean, it's ridiculous. That I've still not really recovered from that, to be honest, because all we're going to get is an apology. It's an awful... how people can look back at that the next day and correct themselves and not notice that. That's what makes it even worse. John McGinn, do you know what? He's that sort of player that probably wouldn't work anywhere else, but he's had his full career, or laterally his full career at Aston Villa, and has made it work for him, become indefensible and dependable. So dependable to Aston Villa. Like, they need him. Oh my God, in the middle of the park, they need him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's the sort of player that went to another club and couldn't do that. I think it's Aston Villa or bust for him, to be honest. And I do rate him. I'm not saying, listen, that sounds harsh. Aston Villa or bust. I think he's a very good player and probably could make a career in other clubs, but I don't think he's going to get what he's got at Aston Villa anywhere else. James says our defence has dropped because of JWP and Souček. Our centre-backs are always under pressure. Leads to corners, free kicks and pens. But I think that's also to do with the fact of where they play as well, and lacking the amount of work that they try to do and have to do to cover that defence. I'm really concerned about our defence. I'm concerned about the energy and the drive to try and win a ball. If you look at Bertrand Diaz's goal, the drive to try and win that ball. Yes, there's a responsibility for the whole team. There's a responsibility for the midfield to get there. But the way that ball drifted over to the player to make Areola to make that fantastic save that he did, Zuma was just off the pace, dramatically off the pace the whole game. And then suddenly Bertrand Diaz just has the desire to get to the ball before any other West Ham player does, and he was the furthest away from it from 2 West Ham players that were around him, and we just didn't have the desire to do it. And I think what we could see is a lease of life. Listen, Alvarez, let's not underestimate the importance of Alvarez, and this is why West Ham would be looking to bring Phillips in, because we need the cover. When we don't have Alvarez, we look like we struggle in the middle of the park. But if you've got someone like Phillips, then you've got strength and depth. And you've got strength and depth in a really key area. That's why I don't think we should underestimate this signing. As long as he's fit and raring to go and want to be there, then so be it. Oh my goodness. Honestly, if you watched it, you would have agreed myself. Wait till you see it. Just go on to some site and type in Ghana, Mozambique, and you will see what I witnessed. I couldn't believe it. The defending was shocking as well, but the keeper will hang his head in shame. Who it is 25 minutes in, it is 20 past midnight. There is a lot of people there, but no one is chatting. I was going to have a little chat with you all, but that's fine. That's all part and parcel of doing this. I hope you enjoy it. It's a late one for everyone who is on tonight. As you've probably seen from the title, it's a huge boost for West Ham. Huge boost is that Ghana are all but out, nearly out. It's going to take a miracle. They're having to wait for 4 odd teams playing tomorrow, and they need every single result to go in their favour in order for them to qualify as one of the 4 third-place teams. They're on 2 points, so there's an outside opportunity that they can, but it's going to be so slim pickings, and you could probably put some decent money on for them to qualify and get some good money back. And, miracles can happen. It's always happened before. But when it comes to Kudus potentially being available for West Ham's next game, wow. Nobody would have thought that. Bowen, nobody would have thought that. And we may have a couple of signings in the door for the next one as well. James Hislop, cheers. All good night. Thank you for joining me, mate. Nice, short and sweet one for you. Hope you've enjoyed it. Join us in the morning, which is this morning, for more updates and, of course, the Hammers headlines tomorrow. Listen, also, if you're new around here and you're interested in joining the channel, then there's an option to join on the membership, so click that as well. Hit the thumbs up if you're watching right now. Hit the thumbs up. It does support the channel. If you're new and you're watching and you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. You'll get notified when we do live shows. Loads of content to update you with today, so go back and look over the content from yesterday. Loads of cool Hammers hit 11s coming your way as well. So go and check them out. We've got some more really exciting people coming on, so yeah, you get yourself involved in that. Really good stuff and some exciting thing. And there's a whole back catalogue of loads of ex-players that we've had on. We've had and even current players, Pedro Obiang, and more recent players, Alessandro Diamanti, Harry Redknapp's been on, Ben Shepherd's been on. So go back and check out the back catalogue for that. Luthers is in the house. I was going to say good night, but it's good morning. But I'm going to say good night to you as well. So listen, thank you very much for everyone for joining me. Take it easy, and of course, hit the thumbs up. Much love. Huge boost for West Ham. Kudus could be back sooner rather than later. Come on, you wonderful Irons.